A quick disclaimer. Green Team received an arc of The Witch Roads by Kate Elliott, courtesy of NetGalley and Tor Books. We thank them for the early copy for review. All opinions are our own. The Witch Roads releases on June 10th, 2025. Hope you enjoy the episode. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Green Team of the Legendarium. I'm your host, Befuddled Panda, and I have with me Chesky.
Hey, everybody.
Chesky and Panda are back with another chat on an upcoming new release called The Witch Roads by Kate Elliott. Chesky, you've
Yes,
read from Kate Elliott before, yeah?
I have. Uh-huh.
Awesome. How much have you read from her?
Sadly, not enough. I've read, I think exactly one book.
Oh my god, that's so wait, one in addition to this one?
Yeah, one in addition to this one.
Okay. Which one was it? Do you remember?
I read Black Wolves, but
Oh, okay.
unfortunately, it's a sad story
Oh,
about black wolves.
okay. Well, I am pretty new to Kate Elliott. I've seen her books on shelves all the time at bookshops, but never really picked them up except for I picked up like The Servant Mage, which is a novella, and I didn't finish it for some reason. In case any listeners are new to Kate Elliott, here's her official bio, which courtesy of the back of the book, if I can. Kate Elliott has been writing science fiction and fantasy for 30 years after bursting onto the scene with Geron. She is best known for her Crown of Stars epic fantasy series and the New York Times bestselling YA fantasy Court of Fives. Elliott's particular focus is immersive world building and centering women in epic stories of adventure amidst transformative cultural change. She lives in Hawaii, where she paddles outrigger canoes and spoils her schnauzer. She also has a Patreon. If listeners want to check that out, we'll link it in the show notes. When I saw that she lives in Hawaii, I got really excited because I read the majority of this book while I myself was in Hawaii on vacation. So I felt that like kinship. And also, I think some of this now makes sense in terms of like the world building in this book, and we'll talk about
Mhm.
it when we get to the meat of our discussion. But before we get there, some quick housekeeping things. If you're new to us, hello. Nice to have you here. Thank you for checking us out, and we hope you like what you hear and stick around. If you've been with us for a little while or more, we'd love for you to like, subscribe, follow, comment wherever you catch us from. The engagement really helps out our little pod and honestly gives us that nice dopamine boost. By the way, we also have a suggestion box. If there's a topic or book you want us to consider covering, let us know. Link is in the show notes. And lastly, if you want to get intimate, want to get the deets on what we're up to in real time, join us over on the Legendarium Discord. And you guessed it, link in the show notes. All right, enough of that. So, the Witch Roads will start spoiler free and then move into spoilers. A quick premise of this book. What is it even about? I'm just going to read it because a lot happens in this book, man.
So much that happens in this. It's so like, how do you give it just like a one sentence or two
I
sentence?
know.
Like, this is what happens. Like, it's so immersive. It's crazy.
Yes, immersive is the key word here. So the blurb goes: status is hereditary, class is bestowed, trust must be earned. When an arrogant prince and his equally arrogant entourage get stuck in or-letter halt as part of brutal political intrigue, competent and sunny Deputy Courier Ellen, once a child slave meant to shield noblemen for the poisonous Paul, is assigned to guide him through the hills to reach his destination. When she warns him not to enter the haunted spires, the prince doesn't heed her advice, and the man who emerges from the towers isn't the same man who entered. The journey that follows is fraught with danger. Can a group taught to ignore and despise the lower classes survive with a mere deputy courier as their guide? Okay, and also very important to note, this is book 1 in the Witch
Yes.
Roads duology. For some reason, I missed the bolded words telling me that this was the first book in a duology. It makes a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Chesky,
Mhm.
general thoughts. What were you hoping this would be? Did it meet your expectations? And how did you like it?
You know, that's a big question there. Well, I liked it first off, of course. I thought
Nice.
it was really good, as always with Kate Elliott with her last book. I mean, this is gonna sound silly, but like her characters are just amazing. Like
Mhm.
for the most part, like every character is amazing. And then her world building and her immersiveness to like small details, but also large details is just off the charts, especially in this one. I felt like I was really like it was good. And she really like she kept me to the knowledge of the people in the story, which is
Mm.
like a good thing, but it's also like I want more, sometimes. Like I
Yes.
want to know what these things are. And she's like, "Well, no, you just have to live with this person because you don't know.
Mm.
They don't know, so you don't know." But w- going into it, I kind of thought this is kind of a spoiler thing to say. I thought that our main character might have a bit more. I am not
Okay.
disappointed in the level of we got,
Okay.
but just and more to do with the witch roads in general.
Okay. Okay.
What the title is, but, on the whole,
Yeah.
not disappointed by what I didn't get, right? Like, I was still very intrigued by all the things I did get.
Yes. A couple of key things here. I think going in, knowing that this is the first book, so it's really the first half of a
Mhm.
complete story is really important
Yes.
because as I was reading, before I realized it was half a book, I was like, this is a lot of setup.
It is a long book.
It is long. It's like, what, 500 something pages? Over 500 pages.
Yeah. I don't know exactly. I don't mean to sound, like, down on it. It was just I was as I was reading this arc, I was like, "Man, this one, it is a long book," but
Yeah.
it was full and good, but yeah.
She definitely kept me wanting to read. At first, I was like, "I'm not really quite sure how I feel about this. I don't know if, I'm vibing with the
Mhm.
the writing and what's going on here." But then I kept going and I got more and more sucked in, and then I felt like it what I would love is I would love to see this get adapted. Like, it would make a really fun video game, I think, where you're able to explore, the different
Yeah.
parts of the world, get to meet the different people and communities, and, just, like, learn the little tidbits and, like, the political intrigue maneuvering, or as a movie or show. I think it's very visual.
I was gonna say I'm gonna agree with you. I think you could easily turn this into an adaptation. It's kind of got that structure to it already where it's, not that it's a I don't wanna say it's just like it's a lot of travel, but there's a lot of travel, but that can lead to a good movie where you have this simple but well-established kind of plot to follow, and
Right,
we don't necessarily know 100% of it, but we know enough that keeps us interesting. I think I had a little bit similar to you in the beginning. I wasn't sure. I'm like, are we going to focus on this person? Are we going to
right.
focus on this person? Is it this person? Is it some small mix of all three, like or all four?
Yeah.
Like, how am I gonna devote my time here to like knowing who to pay attention to, or like not that sounds bad when I say it that way, but
No, no,
like
yes.
like who's our main character here? Like we kind of know, but we don't. And then
Right.
I think you were a little further behind on me, but at 30-ish%, I think I was like, "Okay, now I'm getting more and more invested in this."
Mhm. Is it what I would hope it to be? I'm gonna have to say no, mostly because I honestly wasn't quite sure what to expect going in. I thought it would be more plot driven. I thought it would be a bit more like, uh, yeah, I think I just
Mhm.
thought it would be more plot forward, whereas my assessment is it's very world building forward and then character forward,
Mhm.
and the plot isn't that complicated.
I expect that in the second one will be almost a little bit backwards of that,
Sure.
where we'll be a lot more plot focused or plot driven
Mhm.
and then character driven since the world building has mostly been done. And I think
Yeah.
obviously there's going to be a little bit or a lot more in the next one. But I think the next one will have more of an interesting
Right.
plot.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it does set it up in such a way where it's like, okay, now it's very much the what's gonna happen next.
Yes.
Whereas for this one, it's they had you're very clear, like, there's a destination that they need to get to, right?
Yeah.
What kind of, like, clued me in this is really dumb. What kinda clued me in that I'm like, "I think this is a series," is that I was, like, 70-80% into the book, and there was still more world building bits, like, getting dropped, like, heavy stuff. It wasn't just, like, a little small detail. It was, like, full on because
Yeah, there's one of those last chapters that's like a whole
yeah, like,
world
the
building thing, and I
history.
was like, "Oh my gosh, that's, yeah."
Yeah, so, like, for listeners, how this book is structured, first of all, we love chapter titles,
We do.
when the authors take the time to actually name their chapters, love it. Also, the chapters are short. They're, like, I think, like, 10 pages or so, at most.
Yeah, it's tough to say on an e-reader, but yeah, they're pretty
They're pretty
short
short.
chapters. Yeah.
And then some are quite short because they are, like, interludes of
Yeah.
world building and history. It's like somebody who's writing down a history of this land.
I was thinking, do you think that might have worked a little better as, like, an epigraph to every chapter versus, like, a separate chapter? Every, like, because it was like it felt like every 3 or 4 chapters, it would drop one in, and then
Right.
we'd go 3 or 4 chapters of story and then drop another one in. They were a little dry. I'm not gonna I don't I mean, I'm not saying they were, like, horrible, but, like, compared to the story, there's no character in them, and so they feel
Sure.
dry,
Well,
right?
I would argue then that this kingdom,
Mm.
this society is like a character in itself.
It is. It is, but at the same time, I don't know. I mean, do you think it would've worked better, though, if you had more of them as epigraphs versus less spread out?
I actually think it's fine the
Mhm.
way it is. I say that because, like, there is, like, pretty good information that is imparted in those sections, and some
Yes.
of them are, like, a bit lengthy to be an epigraph.
Yeah, oh, they would definitely need to be reworked or something.
Yeah, like, shorten a lot, and I
Yeah.
think part of the immersiveness is, it's like if you're playing a video game and then you find, like, a book or a scroll, right? And then, like, you're
Yeah,
reading that in-world history kinda situation. It felt like that, so
I can't argue with that.
So, overall, I did end up really enjoying it, and the more that I think about it after reading it, the more that I like it, and lucky for us, I understand that the second book comes out later this year. So, there's not too much of a wait for the second half of the story.
Yeah, it was interesting reading if you read the acknowledgments kind of at the very end, she was able to write this because of her patrons, right, on Patreon,
Yes.
right? And so, if she was able to write it all and then go ahead and publish it through Tor, I mean, I think that's great that she's able to take the time to write both and then take it through the publishing process,
Mhm.
right? Whereas a lot of
Mhm.
the times you get book 1 written, gets published, then the author has to scramble to write book
Yeah.
2 or, things like that, so I like it, yeah.
I think, like, the expectation from me is that it wouldn't have that, like, second book syndrome, and
Mhm.
plus it's a duology as opposed to a trilogy or longer,
Right.
like, it would be pretty wrapped up, although, I mean, even though we've only read this first half of the duology, if she did end up wanting to explore this world that she created more
Oh,
and write.
so much more that she
Yeah,
could delve into, like,
it's so
yeah.
rich.
I mean, she can just walk backwards in time and get,
Yeah.
like, hundreds of stories that she's alluded to and set up and created, and then yeah, yeah.
Yeah, or even do, like, a slice of life kind of novella or
Mhm.
short story focusing on just, like, one character that we, came across or a community that we came across, or even just, like yeah, like, Ellen on one of her, trips, monthly courier trips. That would be amazing. So, yeah, I'm actually really excited for, 1, us having read this together and I have somebody to talk to about this because this book hasn't come out yet. Very soon it will be, but I hope this series gets good reception. I was gonna ask you because I thought you had read more of Kate Elliott. I was gonna ask you, is this book representative of what Eliot's other works are like? Based on what you've read so far, what do you think?
I'll still answer the question as though I know everything. So, from my unbiased, perfect opinion here, this is kind of representative. I think she does generally really good character work and really good world building. The other one I read had a bit more of the pieces moving in play, a bit more of a plot kind of starting and alluding to. That one was a little different though because it was going to be a trilogy
Okay.
and it was, and we had multiple point of views, and so we were
Oh,
cycling
okay.
through those. So this was a little different to me where it was one single point of view, but I felt like her character work matched up to what I remembered, like the feelings of being swept up in these characters and like wanting to know more about them and like following through on them and being like, yeah, this is my character that I want to be with, right?
Yeah.
So I did find it, I think, representative of her work or her standards at least, right?
Yeah. Nice. I was gonna also ask, like, is this a good starting point to get into Kate Elliott's work? And I mean, this is really my starting point, and I'm having a
Yeah.
fine time. So I would say yes.
I don't think it's a bad starting point. I mean, I think the only really bad starting points are like in the middle of series.
Which, I mean, sometimes it works out well, especially if, like, the previous books aren't that great and.
Yeah, but a little bit of context goes a long way in
That's
knowing
true.
why things are and what is going on.
Yes. So, this is kinda hard because it is, like, first half, of a complete story,
Mhm.
but who would you recommend this book
Ooh.
to? Or is there anybody you wouldn't recommend this book to? What
Let's
kind of
see.
readers?
I mean, I don't know if there's anybody if you want really like fast-paced, get to the plot, you want to know everything that's going on behind the scenes, I probably wouldn't recommend this to you right out of the gate.
Mm,
But if
yeah.
you really like your characters and you really like your world building, I mean, I just keep bouncing back and forth between those two things, right? Because I just think they were really excellent in this book. But I think if you like those things, you'll really like this book.
I definitely wanna get more into the characters. To me, I feel like my read on this is the world building was a bit stronger than the character work.
Mhm.
And part of that could be because she did spend so much of her word count on the world building, and the characters were perhaps there would be more in the second half. So I'm kind of reserving judgment a little bit until I'm able to read the second half. But in this first installment, the world building is stronger than the character work to me.
Mhm. So who would you recommend it to then, Panda? Lovers of world building?
Yeah, I mean, like, if you like a world where especially if you like to write fan fiction, if you like being inspired by, somebody else's creation and then wanting to create your own based on that, this is like a good, rich place to play with. Honestly, I think that's what Kate Elliott kinda did. Like, she played in that sandbox. And who knows, like, how many more notes and stories and little, like, histories, she's written and hasn't been included, in the actual book. Enough of the spoiler-free discussion.
Let's get into it.
We're moving into spoilers, so if you don't wanna be spoiled for the book, stop listening now. Warning aside, okay, summary. A summary do you have a summary? Or do you want me to do the summary?
Oh, you better do the summary.
Okay, no worries. Alright, this is a bit, so hope you have a cup of tea or something. Ellen, AKA Elle, is a deputy courier. She delivers messages on a monthly basis and has done so walking the same route for 10 years. She lives in a land where there's a horror called the pall that infects living things with spores. When living things get infected, they become horrors and die. Like their heads split into two, they grow an extra arm. It's like mutation. But in this land, there's a special kind of road supposedly built with the bones of some special people mixed into the brick. And for whatever reason, this kind of road wards off the pall, creating a safe path throughout the land. Speaking of the land, the kingdom has a very strict caste like system, and the ruling classes are very precious about maintaining the class divisions. Ellen has a nephew named Kem, who we later find out was born Kema and is the offspring of a lord, making her manor born and therefore higher class. Kem is coming of age and needs to declare a profession that he would work for the rest of his life. Events happen, and a prince named Jevulin, I guess, comes into their lives. Kem's arrogant biological father tries to force Kem back to his manor and live as his daughter. Elle was going to be punished for kidnapping Kem from the abusive lord, and somehow Kem ends up declaring as a warden to serve the said prince in order to escape the scumbag Lord Daddy. The prince is on a mission. On the way to execute the mission, the prince becomes possessed by a haunt. The haunt becomes especially interested in Ellen, which causes confusion and tension because she's so low born. But she's the only one that can get the prince to his destination. During the journey to the far boundary vigil, a lot happens. A lot of terrain is covered, betrayals and backstabbing uncovered, romance is kindled, friendships are made, relationships broken and repaired, and Ellen ends with a heartache. The haunt ends up slipping into the pall looking for sorcery, and the prince learns of Ellen's secrets and blackmails her to become his secret weapon.
Yep, that's it, and more. I mean, it's
So much more. Oh man, where do we even want to start? Do we want to start with the characters? Do we want to start with the world? What's
oh
your
boy,
fancy?
it's a big question here. I think it's always best to start with characters and go
Okay.
through likes, dislikes, and such first, and see what we see, right? So
All right. So, what stood out to you about the character work? And also, was the romance convincing or well done?
I would have liked a little bit more hints of the romance.
Mm,
But I do think that the peaceful, quiet talks that they had when they're alone, and they're always trying to get alone because they're the only 2 that know what's going on,
yeah.
you know, that was it was, maybe a little bit more than barely enough for me, right? Where I can see like, I can feasibly see them growing closer over these talks and being like, "What's going on?" And the shared pressure of, "Hey, we're in this together. If I fail, you fail," kind of a
Right.
thing. And neither of them want to fail, and then him knowing more about her than she knows, but not knowing everything, and then, her trying to teach him things. Like, I thought it worked, but I would have loved a little bit more, but I thought their parting, like, chapter was just, like, great.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, I hate it. Like, don't go into the ball. Stay. Just be the prince. Take over his life. Nobody cares about him. He was a rude jerk to everybody who wouldn't listen." And was
Yeah.
like, I mean, it's that character you love to hate, right? Where he's like,
Oh,
"I'm
yeah.
the prince, therefore I know what's right." And it's like, "Well, the road is closed. I know that the road is open. How dare you lie to me?" And then he gets back and he's like, why is the road closed?" And it's like, "I tried to warn you, but you didn't listen, and it's my fault because I closed the road by an avalanche 2 years ago because I could." Like,
Yeah. I agree with you. I did not find the romance quite as convincing, and I mean, okay, you wanna talk about the bath scene?
Which bath scene, Panda? Which bath scene do you wanna talk about?
The first
The
one
very first one.
where the prince literally I mean, doesn't matter who's in the room with him,
He
literally
is a
just
prince. He
he's a
is above
prince,
you.
and he knows that his body is gorgeous. We are it's made very clear to us
Very
that his
clear.
body is gorgeous.
Especially his buttocks.
Oh my gosh. I did almost think I was like, "Is this gonna be a smut book?" But it's not.
It's not.
I thought that was, like, a fun scene, a bit unexpected, going in, but it kinda sets up, like, okay, there's at least there is that physical attraction from Ellen to the prince, and
Mhm.
then it becomes the attraction of the haunt to who Ellen is as a person.
Mhm.
And then Ellen then also being attracted to the haunt for who he is. I mean, the prince's body helps,
Right,
obviously.
right. Of course, it always does. But no, I like that as much as they were attracted to each other's bodies, which you kind of can tell that they are, it really focuses more on that. Like Alan's like he sees me, for
Yeah,
who I am and for what I can contribute, not just as this person who does these things, or not as just a co-conspirator. He like sees her, and that's what she really likes about him because it's the only person she can actually really be honest with.
right. Do you think that the prince, after, being freed from the haunt, do you think he and Ellen would end up together at the end?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No way.
I don't
No,
think
I
so
I
either.
I can't see. I am holding out hope that he comes back and just retakes
The
over the
haunt.
prince.
Yeah.
Yes, deals with him that way. We get rid of him.
Let's talk about the ages of the characters for a sec. So, obviously, the haunt is, like, hundreds of years old, if not thousands.
We don't know how old he was when he got shorn, though,
True, true. But we do know for sure by the end that he is a dragon.
or dragon-like.
Or dragon-like. You don't think he was an actual dragon?
I don't know. It's so weird
Ah,
because we still don't know these things because, I mean, the other beasts and the other statues weren't all dragons, and so that means that they weren't all dragon-shorn people. I kind of took it as, like, just like Ellen has the viper in her that she was kinda born with,
oh,
he had a dragon in him, but not
okay,
exactly the same, but maybe,
okay.
because she can resist his sorceries a little bit, right? And then
Mhm.
so that would mean that, like, she can do the sorceries theoretically, which would put her at the same as him, but obviously way less knowledgeable.
Okay, okay, fine. Maybe not
So,
a
like, now
dragon,
his
maybe a dragon.
soul is the dragon, right? Because he is the
Sure.
dragon. Like,
Yeah.
she would be the viper if she was to do that kind of a thing
Okay. Obviously, he's, like, ages old. She is in her 30s,
in her
like
30s. Yep.
33, 34, about
Yep.
there, and have you ever read or seen Howl's Moving Castle?
I actually haven't on either account. I know
Oh my goodness.
it's a great misstep for me.
Okay. I won't spoil Howl's Moving Castle.
I know most of the relevant plot beats though, so don't
Okay.
worry about that.
All I'll say is this Ellen Haunt, which we do get his names, it's like Sarah Serlin, whatever.
It was a tough one.
Yeah. The names in this book are a bit challenging to get used to. Their interaction and relationship very much reminds me of Sophie and Howl, and
Mm,
that's all I'll
yeah.
say. And I just for whatever reason, in my mind, I pictured, Ellen to be older than mid-30s, and that was, like, a weird image that I had in my mind, but anyway, their relationship, the way that they, like, interact and kinda banter, and her sunny disposition, and how direct she is, and how she's just like, "I'm just gonna say what I think," you know?
She's just a low-born commoner, although
Yeah.
technically she's no-born, so
That's true. I know.
Yeah.
So that's what I'll say, about that, and hopefully hopefully that isn't the end of the romance and we'll get a bit more something, in the
I
second half.
mean, I'm gonna say it. He has to come back because he hasn't done anything. He got to he got to where he needed to go, and now he
Uh-huh.
needs to investigate, and there's gonna be something wrong, and then he's
And
gonna
he's
come
gonna
back to
need Ellen
and he's gonna
for
come back and
something.
get Ellen's help, and then they're gonna solve the problem, thereby saving the world, but not removing the Paul because the Paul just exists.
Okay, I know we wanna talk about characters, but let's talk about the Paul real
Okay,
quick
let's talk
because
about it.
I for a good chunk of this book, I was so confused.
I
I was like,
Yeah,
"What is the Paul?"
I do wish there'd been a little bit more influencing the Paul or talking about the Paul versus just it's the Paul, it can't touch the witch roads, and it carries spore. But then the spore is its own thing,
Mhm,
not necessarily always associated with the Paul. And like I said, these are just like seeds for other stories, but there's the devastation and there's the sea
mhm.
wolves and the blood wolves and the timber wolves
Yes. The
and I'm just like,
Timberwolves.
it's not the Timberwolves, but you know what I mean? Like, there's
Yeah,
so many that it's just like it's overwhelming. It's like I need like one of these to be described in a little bit more detail.
right,
Like, give me 5 more minutes on the pall. The pall is a thick fog that hangs over the ground, and we get this at the end
right.
a little bit more, but like when we see the dead pall, and we're like, oh, okay, so it's kind of like an ocean, but more like a mist slash fog, but it
Yeah.
kinda doesn't roil this one like an ocean would, but a living one would, and you can kinda feel it if you've got the senses, and I'm like, "Oh, this makes so much more sense." It's like a fog that infects things, or like that's where the spore lives. The
Yes.
spore can also just come up from underground. I'm like and it creates horrible monsters that try and infect everybody like a parasite, but, like, give
Yeah.
me, like, 5 minutes on the spore and 5 minutes on the paw,
Like,
and cut out
earlier.
one devastation.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's what was making it more challenging is the references to the Paul was both to it as, like, a plague kinda situation,
Yes,
but
and as a
also
thing.
and also as location, like,
Yes,
as
uh-huh.
like a terrain, right? And so
Mhm.
when you think they call it like the far boundary pall or whatever, and I was just like, "Oh, I thought that was a place," or like flat pall. I didn't understand what flat pall really meant
Until you
until we
see
got
it.
to
Yeah,
yeah,
uh-huh.
and I was like, "Oh, it's like a place, but it's also not just a place. It's like the location of where this particular section of the pall is."
That's, like,
Uh,
weirdly cut off and dead, or, like, as we learn,
right.
dying or something, right? But we're like, yeah. No, I agree. I agree that in this aspect, maybe her world building wasn't quite as good. In every other aspect, it was
Or
really well
maybe it
thought
was
out, I thought.
intentional,
And it
I don't
yeah,
know.
we are very limited by the character's understanding of what's going on.
That is very
And
true.
nobody knows anything. This is something I liked about the world building is it felt a lot more accurate to me as the with the passage of time. I
Yes.
don't remember what I was reading, but one thing something was like I was like, why do all books go like 10,000 years to the exact same kingdom is the exact same spot with the exact same borders and the exact same histories and everybody knows
Right.
exactly what happened 10,000 years ago and they're like you'd be lucky if anybody remembered anything that happened 1,000 years ago, even with perfect records, and I'm like, that was, and like just the way the information's been totally
Yeah.
lost or corrupted and yeah, misappropriated. I liked that part of it, but it was, oh, just a little frustrating when you're like, I don't understand. Give me the
So,
ball. Give me it to answer.
at least in the arc, in our digital arc, there is no map.
That's true. I was really hoping for a map, but I didn't find one.
I'm wondering if, well, 1, when the book comes out, whether or not it would have a map, but also if it doesn't, if the first book doesn't, if the second book will have a map and whether, including a map in the first one would be kinda like spoilers, potentially.
I think they could just cut it to have, like, the view of what they know of the kingdom and then, add the
Yeah.
next piece later. But remember, Panda, we're just common born people. We're not surveyors even to be able to have a map.
Oh, that's
Like,
true. That's true. Couriers can't have
cour
maps.
couriers don't get maps. I love that. That's every time they're like, "Why don't you just do this?" And she's like, "I'm just a helpless courier. I don't have any of
I'm
these. I'm
just
just a
a
a
Really?
little deputy courier. I don't have any of these cool fancy things you want.
But she's not a menial.
She's not a menial.
So,
She's
you
not.
know, you wash your own dishes. Like, sorry, I'm not here to wash your dishes.
That was funny. Yeah.
Getting back to the characters.
All right, Panda. Here, I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
How did you feel about Kem and Ellen and their relationship and how it started and how it broke and how it came back together? Like, tell me about it.
Overall, I really liked it. I liked how, the characters were written. I did find the, like, teen angst, a bit of miscommunication trope thrown in there, a
Mhm.
little, eh, frustrating, but overall, I did really appreciate, and that's the other thing is, so this is pretty, like, in this world,
Pretty progressive.
pretty progressive, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but also, and it can get a little confusing. So Kim,
I was
right?
so confused for the first, like I was
Yeah.
like, "I don't understand." I'm like, "I'm waiting, I don't understand why you said what you just said, but, like, I'm gonna go with it and let's see what happens."
So, yeah, we get that Kim made a declaration shortly after their mother died. We don't know what that declaration was, but we just know that it's very adamant, and then Kim was Kim.
And that
And then
declarations are, like, big things.
right.
Yeah.
And then later we find out once Lord Douchebag arrives. Seriously. He was like, "I had a daughter. Her name was Kemma." And then you're putting it together, and I do like how Kate Elliott handled that situation where she's not, like, really making it that explicit and that big of a deal. It's a
Mhm,
big deal for the character, and we feel the significance of it for the character, but it's
mhm.
not like tokenism. She's not, like, overdoing it.
Yeah.
But the other thing is a prince, an emperor, they're just titles. There's
Yes, it
no
goes back to that.
gender
Mhm.
attached to it. So that took some getting used to. And once I figured that out, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. Like emperor, but it's female in this case, and
Yeah,
so
that
on.
was confusing that they didn't I mean, it's just once you get used to it, then you just have to be in that mindset to be like, "Okay, emperor is just the title, it's not referring to emperor versus empress," and
Right.
which one's in charge or anything, but, yeah, I liked it, and, I mean, I get what you're saying about their relationship to the with the angst, but I feel like in my head, I almost tried to age them up too much
Okay.
because he is just 16 for his declaration, right? Or is it 14?
I think I don't remember. I think it's like 16, 17.
Yeah. So I think he's 16 for his declaration, which would make me want to just kind of age up Ellen even a little bit more. But then I think, well, when I was 16, I was very probably angsty and not the smartest at communicating in general anyway. And so I'm like, but it didn't bother me as much, I guess, because I was like, okay, he is like really actually a teenager, not a 20-year-old that most books
Right.
would focus on, right? Like most characters I feel like are just past that teenage phase,
Mm.
or they act at least past it, and he was more actually in it. But I mean, I didn't love that he felt betrayed or anything, but I loved that instant anger and then the sullen, like, I'm looking at you and I'm angry at you and like trying to force himself to be angry all the time.
Right.
And then, their reconciliation at the end where he's like, come on, it's okay. And she tells him everything and he's like, oh boy.
Yeah.
And he gets mad at her again, and I'm like, "Come on, she's bearing her heart to you, and you're just, like, looking for the worst
Yeah.
in it."
And I guess because we're only getting glimpses of what the relationship between Kem and his mother, Eowyn, was
That was
like.
such a tough name.
There are a lot of vowels. It wasn't like it was more of the being told what that relationship was like as opposed to being shown. And
Mhm.
so the like whether it's the trauma, the, negative experience that Kem had where he just was more constantly fighting with his mother and not understanding because they never told him. what happened to his mother and the backstory and why she's the
Yeah.
way she is. I think that is fairly realistic.
I'm on both sides of that one. I'm like, "You should have told them at least a little bit," you know? But on the
Yeah.
other hand, I'm like, "That was a majorly intense thing you guys went through." Like, I don't blame you guys for wanting to try and just, like,
Yeah.
forget it and not, really think about it and stuff.
Yeah. Overall, I think it was pretty well done with some nitpicks. Yeah.
Hey, here's a question for you, Pat. I gotta read this off, though, so I get it right.
Okay.
How did you feel about His Highness Gevelin, Prince Warden of the Imperial Order of Wardens, Exalted General of the All-Seeing Eye, Captain of 1,000, Adept of the Bow and the Spear, Conqueror of the Ten Peaks race, Elegant Grace of the Wind Dance, Artist of the Brush, Virtuoso of the Pen, Master of the Lyre, and Preeminent Bard of the 12 Cycles and the 360 Poems of the Glorious Founder, Prince of the Third Estate and Guardian of the Absinthe Grove, born into the Flower Court, on the knees of the elegant consort in whose honor the Lily Emperor of blessed memory instituted the feast of sweet pipes and contrapuntal song, last of the court-born princes born of the Lily Emperor's resplendent seed, His Highness Gevelin, he that is all that is modest and humble in demeanor, bowing before the righteous might and magnificent wisdom of the Magnolia Emperor, his blessed elder sister, whom he serves as do all imperial subjects. Whew, that's so much.
Can you imagine, like okay, we haven't talked about, like, the interlocutor? Is that
Oh
how you
yeah,
say?
that was fun. Just a speaker for the king
Yeah.
for higher cast, so they don't have to physically interact, a mediator cast, if you
Yes.
will.
Yeah. Like, you would have to remember that and, like, how many times you would have to recite it. That is so tiring. And I'm really glad, like, we just get it that once, and then the
Oh,
next time, it's like, she starts writing it out, and you're like, "Oh my god," and then it just, like, tapers off because like, you get it. You get the yeah, gist.
yeah.
Oh, man. She must have had so much fun. Maybe, like, with her patrons?
She did
Um,
mention that she did get, feedback and things from the patrons to incorporate into the book, so I thought that was
that would
funny.
be fun. Yeah.
But, no, I just wanted to read out his entire title because it was crazy,
Oh,
and,
man.
but the interlocutor, like you said, Luviara,
Mhm.
she has a little bit more going on.
Mhm.
I don't know, I'm a little interested because 'cause she's got spirits moving around her, they say, like wind
Yes.
spirits, and she's able to, like, use them to
She's
empower
not
herself
a
a little bit,
sorcerer. They don't
but
call them sorcerers. They're Thurgists, I believe is
Thurgist,
the
Theurgist, I don't yeah,
yeah,
Thurgist is, yeah, I was like,
Thurgists.
"Oh, I think she's got a secret agenda, though, or another secret
Yeah.
agenda,"
You think
like,
she's the mole?
no, no, I don't think she's the
No.
mole, um I think she's like a third party kind of a thing where she's got
Oh.
her own agenda, which is also keeping track of the Paul or something,
Okay.
something like that, where she might be actually more informed than kings, the emperor, and the prince concepts and stuff, like secret organization type of thing, where she's like, because she seems to know a ton about it,
Yeah.
and she picks up that Ellen is not telling the truth every time, but like pushes, but just enough to like not,
Mhm.
you know what I mean?
If we're gonna go into, like, predictions and conspiracies, what if because one thing that we do learn about Luviara
Mm,
is her power comes from these, like, spirits that
yes.
she's somehow trapped or has attached to her,
Yeah, that part's a little unclear still.
and the Haunt is upset about it, but what we also learn from the Haunt is he thinks that in the Paul, there are souls.
Yeah. Well,
So if
but there almost are because when a spore creature dies or like is infecting things, it does speak out. Like when that
yeah, like the
soldier dies, he
yeah.
says, I don't remember what he says, but he says something, and when she kills the mouse, it like mimics Chem, right?
Mm.
And that's
Well, it's
I don't
trying
know.
to
I yeah.
attract her, like,
Yeah.
another living thing to come close enough for them to consume. But if I'm putting those 2 together, potentially my, like, suspicion is that the Paul was definitely, quote, unquote, "man-made,"
Of course, yep. Agree.
and the Empire, the ruling class, knows about the history of how the Paul came about and perhaps has some hand in, like, maintaining it, and potentially it's, like, the Thurgis people who are kind of behind it, and that's how they get their magical power.
Interesting. Now, we know that the pall kind of like surrounds them, keeps them isolated.
Mhm.
They don't know of any more because that witch road is broken, so they don't even know it extends
Right.
just that little further. Was that I mean, in my mind, I was like, is this Paul? Was it like a defensive feature that like got out of control that nobody
Yeah.
knows about? Like they did it to isolate themselves and then it kind of worked too good and now they've like lost control of it and forgotten everything? Was it like an offensive thing to like lock them in place? Like it drained out of this one spot. Is it going to drain all of it going to go away eventually? Like, I
Mhm.
don't know.
Well,
There was
also
so
because
much.
where you talk about the broken road, right? It was
Mhm.
actually a bridge, and
Yes.
Ellen's story, she said that it looked like the bridge was deliberately broken.
Yes, uh-huh. Yeah, that's
So
exactly right. So, like, it was severed to, like, force lost lose lo no contact with this whole empire.
but
So, I
yeah,
mean, like,
potentially.
who knows how much is even beyond that because, like,
Mhm.
Elle knows that there's the nameless land kinda where she was from,
Right.
but, like, did it extend past that? Because the people she was with didn't even know anything. They were, like, even further behind than the empire is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, where she came from. Yeah, for sure.
Right, yeah, so, no, it was good. I mean, tell me what you think, but I thought her writing she had some pretty beautiful spots of writing, where
Mhm.
just, like, there was a lot of, like, "Man, that was a good sentence," or, like, "That was a good paragraph." I mean, do you agree? Do
I
you
do. I
Okay.
do have to say though, having because I'm also in the midst of reading The Dandelion Dynasty by Ken Liu, it is a bit unfair to Kate Elliott because Ken Liu's writing, it's so infused with philosophy and like meditation and just like reflection
Sure.
and, this one, it kinda gives me the same feel, but not quite that much because there is a little bit of philosophizing in here, but it's nothing really groundbreaking. It's not really, like, the main point of
Right.
this story, and so it's, like, just enough where I'm like, "Oh, this reminds me of some things from the Dandelion Dynasty," and I'm like, "Ooh, I want a bit more," but then that's not what this book is trying to do, so then I'm
Mhm.
a little disappointed. But if I, block out the Dandelion Dynasty and just read this book as it is a lot of it is quite beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, here's something that, Ken Liu said about one of her other books, "A masterpiece that soars with an epic soul." So, Ken Liu likes her writing,
There you
therefore,
go.
it's okay that his is maybe outshines it a little bit. He thinks it's still good, so, we
Yeah.
have to trust him.
I mean, I would say if you like this, then go read the Dandelion Dynasty.
I have too many books to read, Panda, I just can't commit to another one right now.
I have to give you a really good pitch, right?
Yes, yes,
Uh,
that's all.
do you wanna talk about the quarreling ex-lovers? I actually
I
don't
mean
wanna spend that much time on them,
we don't
but
have to spend a lot, but I thought it was fun, and I thought it provided a little bit of contrast to her to the wardens that she was with, and
mhm.
that, uh, Zilce was just like, "I don't know why he thought I wouldn't know," and she's like, "Well, did you think about how, like, your status might also, like, affect him?" And she's like, "No, why would I think of that?" And she's like, "Well, I don't know. I'm just a poor deputy courier here, but, like, maybe you should think about that." And then I wasn't sure if she was gonna go for like they'll hate each other at the beginning, they get back together,
Sure.
but they didn't, and that's fine. I mean, it was just kind of like it is where it is.
Yeah. I did find the bickering a little bit much, especially given the etiquette of how you're supposed to behave in front of a prince.
I think, I mean, Yeah, I think it mostly happened outside of his view until, like, after he'd clearly been taken over by somebody else and was, like, not the same person the whole way.
Yeah.
When they're like, "Wait a minute, like, he's cuts out his retinue and everything, and then I have to protect these people," and he's like, "Oh," they like, feeling actual gratitude towards him versus, like,
Yeah.
"Yep, he's a prince, I gotta listen to the prince."
Yeah.
And so I'm like, "Yeah," but yeah, I see what you mean though, yeah. It was every interaction, it felt like.
I think it would be nice at the end of this book to have, like, a list of characters. 'Cause there are quite a few, and their names are a bit hard to remember.
Yes. Uh, I mean, even if it was a glossary, here's the names, here's
Oh, yeah, because also, like,
wardens, these are the towns, these are
the names of the
or the
different
caste
places.
system itself is
Yeah.
like menial, done.
It's like a these halts are kind of like forts, but they're called halts. I don't know if halt is an actual, like, term?
I don't remember ever hearing halt before, but yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know if she just, like, made it up or if it's, like, an really archaic term. Anyway, so in the different, like, species that
Oh,
they
the Ivor,
encounter, the Iovor and the
the
Art.
Schwarleys. Yeah. I'm like, listeners, trust us. We both thought it was good. We're both gonna give it a high score. There's just so much. And when you're reading it, it's so much to try and remember. Like, it's just jam-packed with like,
Yeah.
"Oh, yeah, there's these creatures, and they came and visit the dragon person, and they're
And
like,
this is their
hey."
history, and this is their society, and the da
Yeah.
da da da.
And he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna leave, just like, I'm passing through, tell your den mother, like, it's
Yeah.
all cool," and they're like, "Okay, peace out, like, we're gonna kill you if you venture off the path, and, like, don't do it."
You know
Like
what would be fun for those who are inclined? I think this would be a fun world to have, like, a role-playing,
Mm,
campaign, because this whole entire journey is kinda like a campaign,
yes.
and you could totally make it your own, and then, eventually, once this book comes out, maybe there'll be, like, a full wiki of the different creatures and the history and the different, locations. I really like the Heart Temple.
Yeah, that was a really interesting kinda thing.
Yeah, every halt, had a heart temple. The, floor plan is always the same, so you know what to expect, and then there's the etiquette of, any stranger can stay there for 3 nights, and just the whole thing, and in that aspect, it was a little bit like cozy fantasy, especially
Yeah,
of, like, how much food, like, descriptions of food that there is in this book.
there's a lot of food descriptions. And one really odd scene where he, eats a mouse.
A spore-ridden mouse, actually.
That's very true, I was wrong.
No, I mean, you were right, but yeah, it was like, okay, I guess he's quite immune. Something I also noticed, I don't know if you caught this, but how often they, like, wash up. Like,
Wash a
Ellen
lot,
washes
yeah.
her hands and her face and, like, all that. So it's just, like, these little details that make it feel more real.
And I mean, to me, it made sense because it's like, yes, you live in a spore-infested world, right? Even though the spore would affect you almost immediately,
Right.
like, you would wanna wash your hands more often just to be like, "Oh, I'm clean," because salt water kills it or stops it as well, but, like,
Pure water,
that
yeah.
made yeah, pure water. And the heart temples were all built before as well, like, nobody knows where
Mm,
they came from either, like, they're always there, they're there.
mhm.
That was
Yeah.
so much was like, "This was built, we kinda took it over, we don't really know how it works." Or, like,
They
what's
all
going
have a
on with it.
fountain. Yeah, and then just, like, talking like, inclusion of going to the restroom, taking a bath, like, these little details making it feel more real
Mhm.
were very intentional, and I think did help make the world feel more immersive. One thing that did kinda irk me.
Yeah, I'm ready for it.
Okay. How do you feel about using like real world swear words in fake, like fictional worlds,
It
especially like
really
fantasy ones.
it really doesn't bother me.
Oh, it doesn't?
No, I don't it doesn't bother me one bit, actually, like,
Okay.
sometimes I have a harder time with the, fake swear words because I have to remember, "Oh, that's a curse word, not
That's an
just him
expletive.
saying you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so but no,
Okay,
doesn't
fair.
doesn't really bother me.
I think it bothered me in this case, and actually another book that I'm actually reading The Tainted Cup right now, and it has the same kind of thing using real swear words. It's because the author goes through so much trouble to make up words or,
Why
like,
not just make
use
up 1 or 2
archaic
more?
words. Yeah, it just kinda is like w this jarring, like, "Oh, whoa," and then all of a sudden, it's like a word that, we would just know in our day to
Yeah,
day.
uh-huh.
So, that's my qualm.
That's a realistic qualm. I have no counter complaints about your qualm.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your support.
You're welcome. I'll support that any day.
I mean, there is a lot, but at the same time, it's like
It's tough to talk about without a specific kind of goal in mind. Like, we could try and talk
yeah,
about the caste system a little more, but, like, we really don't know a whole lot other than it exists, that we can see the effects of it that it has on things, but, like, there's not much more to say about it other than that,
yeah.
you know?
I am very curious about this whole Viper situation that
Yeah, I
Ellen has
really
going
wanna
on.
know about that.
Yeah, like why, and like, is it that it's more common? There are other people in the Nameless Land who have things like that. I mean, we do know at the end that the prince knows about the Viper and he's gonna try to use it for
Well,
his
and
advantage.
that was so crazy to me because he was like, "Oh, yeah, he'll never know," and then he comes out, "Oh, I know everything.
Everything.
I am here for it." I'm like, oh, because I was not I was all I was more concerned, like, how are they gonna explain to the prince that, like, "Oh, yeah, you passed out and, like, lived throughout this entire journey, and
Yeah,
now
it's
you're
like
here,
10
like,
days later.
surprise."
Yeah, I know, I was wondering that, and then bam, that twist. I was like, "Okay,
Yeah, it was a
alright."
good twist, though, I did not see it coming.
Yeah, it's a logical one too in hindsight.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I think I'm good. I mean, there's so many things that we just have no idea about. The Shorn, the Shivering Tide, the Hollow Wind, all these other things that happen.
Mhm.
I hope we get more or at least 1 or 2, like, in more detail so we know about it because they sound so cool
Yeah.
and, we're waiting. But all in all, I think I'd give this a good maybe a 4.25 out of 5, kind of leaning on a 4.5, 4.75 if the second book
Mm.
is also really good and kind of finishes it up nicely.
Yeah, I was thinking like 4 stars for this first book,
Mhm.
but this series, this duology could have the potential does have the potential to be 5 stars,
Yeah.
depending on, how she lands this thing. So do you have any, like, predictions about how this is gonna end or what's gonna
Well,
happen in the next book?
I this is so tough because I really don't know. Obviously, I think, Prince Gevulin is gonna try and use her. Is he gonna just use her to strike at his sister and the prince consort? Is he gonna use her to do other things? Is he gonna use her to be like, "I have a spore weapon that will stop the spore," and go that route? I think that, Dragon Shorn Man comes back. I think he's gonna have to infect somebody else, but there's
Mm.
gonna be a problem. They're gonna have to travel to her homeland, figure
Mm.
stuff out there, and then come back. And, like, I don't know, like, the whole Atoned and the other things in the of her land, that was crazy. But, like, yeah, I think they're gonna have to go to the land, and potentially they'll rebuild that witch road somehow.
Okay.
I don't know, like, maybe they fix something and it kinda fixes the road or something because it's magic, and we don't
Mhm.
know. Like, it's possible, but that would be my prediction. They have to go to her homeland to solve something, and they do. And then I
Okay.
think she just leaves with him. I don't think she comes back to the Empire. Ken will take care of himself, he's a big boy now.
Yeah.
He'll be part of the Wardens and safe, yeah.
Maybe she'll, like, fully evolve into the Viper, and he'll be in his dragon form, and they'll just fly away into the horizon.
I would like that, yeah. What about you?
I think the prince is gonna die. I'm just gonna say I think the prince is gonna die, and he is gonna die a horrible death.
Is she gonna bite him? Or is her viper gonna bite him?
Maybe, maybe, yeah, yeah. Let's go with that.
That's fine, no big loss on his part, like
And I think the scumbag lord, he's gonna also die a
yeah, I was
horrible
kinda
death.
waiting for his second shoe to drop,
Yeah, right.
and it never did, but
I think it is gonna be in the second book. So, okay.
so Panda just predicts a lot of death, that's what I'm hearing here.
Yes.
If you are a jerk in the first book, you die in the second book. You
There's
heard it
already
here.
a lot of death in this in this one. Um, all right. Well, that is a wrap on our discussion on of The Witch Roads by Kate Elliott, which is the first book in the Witch Roads duology. Releases June 10th, 2025. I hope when it comes out, people will pick it up and read it, and really looking forward to the second book coming out later this year. Thank you, Chesky, for joining me on this chat. And until next time, bye.
Bye.